Thank you for joining this episode of 805 Talk, a show about what's happening inside the 805, with a focus on the Simi Valley and Conejo Valley communities. We bring you everything local business owners, nonprofit organizations, government officials, community leaders, and real estate. Here's our host, Jeff Landau.
Hello, it is Jeff Landau, real estate agent with Keller Williams, and thank you for joining us on another episode of 805 Talk. It is April 29th. I have a good friend with me, Dan Natarelli from MSP Pros, and we are going to talk technology today. Isn't that exciting, Dan?
Very exciting. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this for at least, 3 or 4 minutes. It's been phenomenal. Just can't wait.
So you planned your whole day around it.
Basically, my last 3 days,
There you go.
Yeah, it's been
exactly.
Well.
How long have you been in the technology space, just to let our listeners know?
I have been in the space and been a tech for going on 28 years this year. Don't like to show my age, but been a long time. Basically was around almost before the internet started, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I worked for a couple smaller companies and then broke off on my own in 2000. So as of tomorrow or Friday, I will be, my company has been open for 20 years. So
wow.
I'm doing it a while.
All right. So at some point during the show, I'm going to sing happy birthday to you.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Again, more things to look forward to.
I'll wait until the show's over.
All right. Thank you.
So we've had something happen, nothing that we can necessarily see, but all of a sudden a lot less people are working from the office, and now we are working remotely. Can you start off generally, like what we should be thinking about, what we should know, what we can do to increase our productivity?
Sure. With a little background, when all this stuff struck, a lot of my clients had remote access for the owners, but not a lot of employees had remote access. So the middle of March, beginning of April was a little crazy for me. But what happened is that we had to very quickly get people's employees working from home because they just couldn't get to the office anymore. So ordering equipment, setting up, printers at home, doing it all remotely. I stopped going out. I think it was about the third week of March, and people didn't want me in their homes, which I understand. So it was a very kind of, let's hurry up and do this. Made a few mistakes, but overall got everybody working from home that needed to work from home. But what I realized very early on is that people's home machines are not up to par with their work machines. Employers spend more money on the machines. They want more productivity. But the biggest part of this is the security. The security in smaller offices and clients that we did at the office don't happen at home. People have families. They have kids on Netflix all night. They have they're playing video games. Everybody's playing video games, and the security is pretty wide open. And they don't spend $1,000 to $1,500 on a firewall that they do in some of the smaller clients that I deal with. They saw an ad at Best Buy for $79.99, and that's what they set up. So the security at home is really bad. But there was nothing we could do at that point because it was like, hey, just people were freaking out, employees were losing business, and we needed to get these employees up as fast as possible. So there are a lot of security leaks at home, and that's still continuing. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about today was maybe a couple tips on how to transfer from the office to home and work efficiently, which I know is tough. I've been working at home since 2000 when I opened my company, but I would still go out and see clients during the week, but now I'm basically fully at home. So it's been a little change for me too. So I was going to go over maybe a couple tips that maybe people haven't thought about and say, look, maybe try these things coming from someone that's been in the tech industry for a lot of years and someone that's been working at home. Maybe I can help if I'd love to help if I can. So.
Awesome. So let me lead you into that let's work backwards just for a second. What are risks that people take by not following up on these tips? Like, I have no idea how secure my home system is. By not knowing that, what kind of risks do I take? What kind of risks do people take? And then let's get into your tips.
Okay. Well, we've had enough in the world of people scaring everybody, so I don't want to scare anybody. But when we're all working at home, the hackers are working at home. And not that they usually have real jobs anyway, but they do have more time. So the risks are taken right now is that they're very easily hacked. And when I say hacked, that if you are using an $80 router, that a hacker, if it finds your computer, it's going to take him or her 30 seconds to get in. So the risks are really losing your data. If you're remoting into a server with something or an office machine with LogMeIn or Go to My PC, it's a little more secure. But again, when your equipment at home is, someone could be basically break into your home network and get into your work network, which the risks are someone stealing your company's data. I mean, the QuickBooks data, the database data, the everything. So the risks are very high when you don't use good equipment, and 90% of the workforce being home are not using good equipment. So
Okay.
they're just at risk. When their risk tolerance was 20%, now they're at 80%. So
Thank you. So why don't we get into some tips of what people can do?
okay. First of all, they can, this is just for like your work, kind of like your mental attitude and to stay, I don't want to say excited about work, but to stay kind of focused with work. At home, they should designate a singular place for work. They shouldn't have their laptop on their bed and then the kitchen table and then the living room table. They should just pick a spot, and wherever that is. I do have a lot of clients that are working on the kitchen table, but that's their spot. They just, when they get up for work in the morning, they try to stay on a normal schedule. They log into wherever they need to log into. They work from 8 or 9 to 12. They take the hour lunch break. So some kind of static day to where it's normal. This is what they would do at the office, so let's try to do it at home, but don't be bouncing around the house, which I know is tough with kids and dogs and a lot of stuff happening at home right now. But just try to designate a workspace. That's very good. I would look into, if you're a small business and you work for yourself, a sole proprietor like I am, I would be talking to your IT company or someone like me or me that would maybe be able to give them a little better equipment solution to where it won't be that expensive to take the next level up in security. And what that means is changing the router, changing the wireless, just to get a little more secure. Maybe having me check their computer for antivirus, for firewall, just kind of taking an overview and talking to someone that's that's done this for a long time, knows what they're talking about, is not in it just to make money off you. We all want to make money, but we all like to help to the good techs, and just to secure the network a little better. So that's another tip. I would definitely do that. Also, I would try to tell your housemates or wife or husband or kids that you are working, even though you're at home, and they want to ask you, like Stewie on Family Guy, mommy, 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 if there's a way to tell them that you are working through these hours, and other than you're burning in a fire or the house is burning, to please leave you alone. So a perfect workspace is a home office, obviously, when you can shut the door and not have the distractions from the family and the kids. Let them know you love them, but from 8 to 5, you need to work because this is what you need to do. So
Do any of those tips have to do with security or productivity only?
I would say that those first are productivity. Sorry, I should have said that up front. That's more like productivity. For security wise, the tips I would give would be to, first of all, check your antivirus software. A lot of you use, when you buy a new computer, you get McAfee on it, and the computer gives you 30 days of updates, and then they want you to buy it. I do have a lot of clients that call me and say, oh, I've had new clients basically. I had antivirus when I bought the computer, and the computer is 3 years old. So you really only get 30 days. So that would literally be the first thing I do, would be to check your antivirus. And if you need a new one, I mean, there's a million out there. Personally, I like Trend Micro. But WebRoot and Symantec and Kaspersky, there's a lot of names. And what you have there, maybe you have McAfee and you say, oh, it's $30 to $50 a year. So I would upgrade that immediately to make sure that you have upgraded paid antivirus software.
Okay. What,
Then
anything else? So you have antivirus, you have the firewall, and make sure that you're using quality equipment.
Yeah, the second thing is that I would, again, me or someone like me, give, depending on what you're doing for work, if you're remoting into a network that you're in the medical field, there are certain HIPAA rules you need to follow. So hopefully the company that you work for follows HIPAA, and they have already started to upgrade home equipment to allow these rules to be followed and not break the rules. So the next thing I would do is that if you're working for yourself, I would make sure that you have a good online backup, because if you do get hacked, you will be able to, and they steal your data, or they put a virus in your machine, which doesn't happen a lot very often, but they do put spyware. But if something happens to the machine, you will be able to recover your data. You definitely want your data off-site. And there are companies, one I use is called Backblaze. It's $50 a year for unlimited data. So that's the second thing I would check. So first thing, antivirus, and then have the off-site backup. Third thing I would do would be to maybe give someone like me a call and have them start looking at the networking equipment. The devices that AT&T and Frontier and Spectrum and Cox give you, they don't spend a lot of money on security. They have to offer it, so they offer it, but these devices usually don't give you very good security at all. I mean, really, I don't want to say they don't give you security, but it's very low. And usually your wireless coverage is slow. So if you are having to work in a different part of the room or the house that you're not close to the firewall modem router, then you're going to get a bad connection and you're going to get droppings and you're going to be frustrated. So, and the fact is that again, any hacker could do that in 30 seconds. So they're just not, they don't do that. So I would look at talking to a professional and saying, hey, what do I have? Let's figure it out, and then give me an upgrade path to where I can be more secure.
Does that cover those tips that you wanted to go over?
Yeah, that was the basics. Not going into a 7-hour long discussion about it, but yeah, those are the things to kind of start and put you on the path of working at home better and safer.
It's I gotta say, I'm thinking about things to speak to you about. I wrote down backup options, and I think of the scene from Sex and the City. Did you ever watch that show?
No, well, I watched the show, but I don't want to admit it on a public podcast.
Well, I just did.
Yeah.
There's the episode where Carrie uses a Mac and she lost her data, and everybody she's telling that to, they said, "Well, did you back it up?" She says, "Where were you? How come nobody's told me to back it up until I told you that I lost my data?"
Yeah, in the IT world, here's another very big tip. Really big tip. This could be
Sex and the City helps jog the memory.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, so this is the second big tip. How's that?
There you go.
In any kind of time that you are thinking about IT stuff, anything, it is a million times better to be proactive than reactive.
There you go.
So that's the key. Being proactive, thinking about, no one knew what was going to happen 3 months ago. No one saw this coming. There's been natural disasters that companies have been lost because you don't have online backup. Unfortunately, after 9/11, our field really went into disaster recovery, and online backup got big. And now, it was very expensive in the past. Now it's extremely cheap. I mean, if you're in business for $50 a year, you get everything backed up. that's as good a deal as I could give anybody.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, so I think that just to be thinking about stuff that's proactive and not reactive after it happens.
Awesome. So with a lot of our world going remote recently, I think everybody loves Zoom meetings and is like, oh my God, I can't go on another Zoom meeting today. Anyway, so, you have Zoom and you have another platform called BlueJean. Do you have any tips for maybe not, do people that are on a Zoom call hosted by somebody else, do they have any issues that they have to be concerned about? Any security issues that they have to be concerned about? And if the answer is no, then what do the hosts need to be thinking about?
Well, the first tip, and again, the biggest tip will always be the first one. So the biggest tip is make sure you have clothes on. There's been a lot of memes, and you become a meme when you don't want to become a meme if you do not have clothes on, fully clothed. So that's the first tip. But
as Dan adjusts in his chair.
As well, yeah. But as from the security, I mean, when Zoom started, again, they have 40,000 users, and in a week had 1.4 million. So the numbers are crazy.
Went from 40,000 to over a million.
Yeah, they went. It was some crazy. Yeah, it was just nuts because everybody kind of jumped on Zoom. And don't quote me on those numbers. I'm probably wrong and maybe exaggerating a little bit, but just to give you the for effect, Jeff, for effect.
Okay.
So there were some security holes that no one really paid attention to because they didn't have the users, and they were an up and coming company, and people were starting to use them, but WebEx was kind of the first ones, and right. WebEx is a very good platform and more secure. And if Peaches is listening to this, then thank you for WebEx. But they were a little more secure platform. But so Zoom kind of had to do this on the fly, and then again, when something gets big, like Amazon and eBay in the past, the hackers kind of go for that. So everybody went to hack Zoom. So they were, naked people jumping into kids' meetings. There were very racist comments in meetings, and it was horrible. But obviously they secured it as much as they could at this point. The CEO jumped in and said, yeah, we weren't secure. We apologize. We didn't see this coming. Kind of like the rest of the world didn't see all this stuff coming, but we're on it. So Zoom, I think, is getting more secure by the day. I'm not going to say a person can hack it, but as an admin in a Zoom, I think now it's mandatory that they go into the waiting room, and it's mandatory to put a password. So they are taking steps. It's kind of like almost social distancing for Zoom. They're putting steps into place to make it more secure. But if you are one of those people that, Big Blue is always watching and nothing is ever going to be as secure, then I would jump to WebEx. WebEx is free. Not a lot of people have used WebEx, and that's not their core competency of what they do. But it is, they've had these security measures already in place. And if you have 80% of the nation using Zoom, then the other 20% are using WebEx. Then if you want, the streaming quality, it's been great. I've tested a couple on it. It's great. It does almost everything that Zoom does. Maybe even more. And at this point, it's free. So I would try WebEx.
I'm just trying to think of this next question. First of all, so our show right now is being recorded through Zoom. I'm just curious, with the invite that I sent you, it came with a password. Did you need to enter the password, or did you just click the link?
No, it seems like when you give the link, they embed the password in the link.
Okay.
So, but I do think that is going to change. If you just give the person the meeting ID, then they have to put the password in.
Okay. Now, do you, as my guest in this recording, do you have any security risks as a guest?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. Other than the fact of that, if someone breaks into the meeting, we're going to see their video. So, and sometimes you see things and you can't unsee them. So, I would think that my thought process would be to be more of the owner, because that's how they have to get through, is through the owner's internet. So even if someone was in my network right now, I don't think they could break into the meeting.
Right. So, okay. So if nobody breaks into the meeting, then you as a guest in this meeting don't have any security issues.
As far as I know, no.
Okay. And do I have any, as the host, do I have any, I mean, other than, somebody Zoom bombing, which I think they now have a box to check to not let anybody else share the screen without permission. Do I have any security issues for my system that I'm recording this from or hosting this from?
Well, since I've been your computer guy for the last couple of years, you're the most secure on the planet. So yeah,
That's true.
there's no there's no one on the planet more secure than Jeff Landau from Keller Williams right now. So, yeah, I think that, and then when I talked about security, anytime you are on the internet, there is always a chance to get hacked.
Okay.
I mean, no matter what. So what you try to do with security is put enough levels in to where, let me give you an analogy. If a guy wants to someone wants to steal a car, doesn't matter if they have an alarm or not, they're going to get it. But if they went through 3 alarms to get it, or a higher end alarm, then they're going to go on and move on to the next one. So security is the same way. If they're going to go to if they're going to see a router that's open and it's easy, great. But if they let's say they can't get in the router because it's a little better, then they see there's a firewall on the computer, and then there's firewall software, and then they just kind of move on to the next one. Yeah, they could get in 100%. They can still get in, but they don't want to bother with it. That's why the great signs that when alarm companies put, this is why alarm companies put alarm signs on houses, because if they're driving around looking to rob a house, as you know, the sign is there, and then they're just going to go to the next one, hopefully.
What do you mean, as I know? What's that supposed to mean?
Well, don't you do houses? Oh yeah. Yeah.
I sell houses. I don't break into them.
This is.
Okay.
Well, I figured you said knocking on doors. We didn't. We weren't sure if you were actually breaking into doors. So. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm glad that we're friends, Dan.
Yeah.
So you mentioned tip number 2, which was very important about being proactive as opposed to reactive, and I want to see if there's anything that our guests can learn from what happened to me. I live in an area that does not have good cell coverage, and our internet was completely spotty Monday and Tuesday. And I was relatively out of business unless I took a phone call down the street so my phone could work. Is there a way that I could have been proactive where it took a couple days for the company to come out to address the issue while I was waiting and I did not have any internet access? Am I just SOL? Because this is not an explicit show. Am I out of luck on that, or is there something that I could have done that would have still allowed me to be productive and do some work?
Well, they still have a thing. I think it's called a landline. If I remember correctly, it was something.
And what is that again?
Yeah, isn't it like the dial tone or something?
We have our landline through our cable company, but okay. So go ahead. Landline, got it. Okay.
So if you really wanted to be proactive and work at home, and your cable company is Spectrum like mine,
yes,
and you have a landline through there, which is the Spectrum modem goes out and whatever happened, then you would call AT&T and get a landline put in. So that is as proactive as you're going to get, because it's a different company.
So let's say that I had a hard land. So you're saying that AT&T would have been a hard landline as opposed to the landline that I have now, which isn't really landline.
Correct. Right? Yeah. Well, okay. No, it's a landline, but I'm saying that. So if you want to if you're working at home, and I guess I'll give you a tip. Another good tip. If you're working at home and it's very important that your entire business is on the internet, entire business, and you have Spectrum as your internet provider, well, in every area that Spectrum services, either AT&T or Frontier service also, whoever your telephone provider is. Right. I think yours is AT&T. I don't think it's Frontier, but most of Westlake and Agora and Thousand Oaks is Frontier. But
okay.
You could, for $40 a month, get an AT&T internet line put into your house, a service. So for $40, the Spectrum went out Monday morning. You could literally flip your laptop to the AT&T internet, and now you're working again, because the chances are that both companies are not going to go out at the same time.
Would that be a DSL line?
No, it would be a regular broadband line. There's no DSL anymore.
A regular broadband
So,
line.
yeah.
So
I think Frontier goes up to like 50 or 100, and I think Uverse
just
goes
having
up to,
something is the whole point. So basically have a backup data point.
yeah, a backup
Really, right?
internet service.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
when I go
Yeah.
into companies that rely, I mean, just straight internet business, they're all in the cloud and they have to be on the internet. They've got to do that. I give them the solution. Let's get a nice firewall, $1,500, we'll put it in. And then let's get a Spectrum line for $100 a month. And then let's get an AT&T line for $100 a month. And I have something called a failover in these firewalls that was, sorry to get too technical, but if the Spectrum goes out, the AT&T kicks in, and the AT&T, you hope you never use it, and you're spending 40 or $50 a month to never use it, but most likely at some point you're going to use it. So.
That is awesome advice. I mean, how many people don't have cloud-based services? I mean, my database is all cloud-based now.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, it's hard to make, I use Wi-Fi dialing, and I couldn't use Wi-Fi dialing because my internet was out. So my phone was basically useless. I couldn't get data on my phone. I couldn't access my database. I mean, right. I had to take a phone call down the street. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully you said hi to Bob Miller for me. So that's, if you're taking a phone call down the street. But,
I went the opposthe's way.
Oh, okay. All right. Tell him I said hi when you see him. But anyway, there's always redundancy. In everything in the IT field, proactive other than reactive, and redundancy. And the redundancy part of it is you really cannot afford to be off the internet or no phones or something. I mean, we're in California. We know some disasters happen in California. Spend the 40 or $50 a month and get the backup line. Just use their router. You're never on it. You're basically leaving it unplugged. It's there, and then you can just plug it in when you need it and you go.
That is awesome advice.
Thank you.
And that would have kept me up and running. Just flip a switch. So you mentioned a natural disaster. If we have something that knocks out electricity, even though we have a phone line, if it's through the cable company, and I'm not knocking Spectrum, just a technical question. Is that going to knock out my landline as far as compared to if I had an AT&T line? Yes.
Yeah, you will lose the phone. If you lose power, because the phone line goes through the Spectrum modem. Remember, it goes through the modem.
Oh, and the modem is plugged in.
Right, yeah. But I will say some of the older modems, and I don't know if the newer ones do or not, but some of them have a battery backup in it. So some of them have batteries in it that they used to have that if the power does go out, the batteries kick in. So you would have to literally have to look at your modem, open the bottom, and if there's a battery in it, then it would stay up for the phone line.
I think that's another awesome tip. Thank you.
No problem.
Well, as you mentioned, this phone call, this recording could go on for hours. I've checked off boxes of things that I wanted to cover, and I think we had some amazing nuggets for people to consider. Does anything stand out that I may have left off other than your contact information? Why don't you give us your contact information before you answer the question?
Okay. My name again is Dan Natarelli. My company is MSP Pros. You can reach me. Usually cell phone's better. When everything goes back to normal, I'll probably be out in the field a lot. But my cell phone is 805-304-6070. And email is always good. dan@msppros.com. And a parting tip is, I would say, try not to stress with IT stuff. Everything is pretty much available now. It wasn't in the beginning, other than webcams are very hard to get still. So if you do need a webcam for Zoom meetings, you can use your laptop. Most of the laptops that were made in the last 6 or 7 years all have webcams built in. You can use a tablet, iPad, Galaxy. All the tablets have cameras built in. Again, last 3 or 4 years, everything is built in. And worst case scenario is you can use your phone. They have cameras built in. So I would say that with all the stressful time, we will get back to normal. But I will say that I don't think the IT field will be as normal anymore. I think more people will be planning for disaster recovery measures to make sure that everything's in place. And a lot of employees won't be going back to offices. They will be working at home. So for those employers that are happening to be listening to this, call me or call your IT guy and have a discussion about securing the employees at home to save your data. That's the big thing.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a big risk for a company where you have a remote employee logging into the server for the business. But if you have no idea what kind of security setup the employee has at home, you're just opening up the entire company, right?
Yeah. And we don't have control. Like we in the past have not had control of people's homes. That's the problem. In the office, we can control it to a point. But now at the homes, like I said, I have clients that are using their kids' laptops, and I talk to the owners of the companies and I'm like, hey, we got to get something better. We've got to get a higher end machine. We've got to get their own machine. We've got to get higher end firewalls. We need to do this or something bad is going to happen. And then you're going to be screaming at me and I'm going to say, I told you so, which I don't want to do.
Okay. And another question is coming to mind for me. Firewall, is that hardware or software or both?
Hardware, yeah.
Okay.
When you have originally had your Spectrum, they gave you a modem/router, and then we put the higher end one in.
Yes, we did.
And even in Orbi system, compared to the ones that Spectrum gave you are a lot better. I mean, there's higher levels that we could go to too, but you do everything online. You're not remoting into a server, so I'm not as worried about yours. So.
Right. And is it worth mentioning anything? You were talking a while ago about how Microsoft was not going to be supporting, was it Windows 7 anymore?
Yes, Windows 7. If you still have Windows 7 machine, I spent pretty much all last year updating from Windows 7 and Windows 10. Actually, it's still free. You can do it, but I definitely suggest if the computer's over 4 or 5 years old, not to do it because the computer is going to be too slow. So, but if your computer is Windows 7, most likely it's going to be over 5 or 6 years old. It's time to buy a new one. You can pick up a normal Dell laptop for $500 to $600. I would suggest that. But if you are using Windows 7 still, they're not securing it. They're not doing security updates. So I just wouldn't do anything that if you're connected to the internet, I wouldn't connect the Windows 7 to the internet. So, and if you have to connect to the internet, then it's time to get a new machine.
Yet another tip that you weren't thinking of offering, Dan. You hold them back. Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate all the insight and the tips. Why don't you share your phone number one more time?
Okay. Cell number is 805-304-6070. You can text or call anytime.
Awesome.
And my email is dan@msppros.com.
Thank you so much, my friend. It was a really fun show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any questions about real estate, please reach out. You can reach me by phone at 805-341-0398, or you can find me on my website as well at jefflandauhomes.com. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast.